And if we're being honest, as Black people, the party receives our support almost unanimously when it comes to elections. They don't always serve us in a way that would befit the amount of support they get from us. There's a reluctance to really dance with us. They bring us to the prom, but then they want to dance with other people.
Hey everyone, I'm Selena Hill, and this is the new norm on Black Enterprise. On today's episode, I have the privilege to speak with award-winning broadcast journalist, political analyst, and best-selling author Joy Reid, who is best known as the former host of the two-time NAACP Image Award-winning and Emmy-nominated daily news show, The ReidOut on MSNBC. Joy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be with you, Selena.
As I said off camera, huge fan of all your work and contributions to just culture and journalism. So it literally is when I say that for all my intros, but this is a real privilege. So, I want to start with your new podcast. You announced the Joy Reid Show, which will feature in-depth interviews with newsmakers, as well as your signature wit and unfiltered political commentary. What excites you most about the Joy Reid Show?
Well, thank you. First of all, always great to be here with Black Enterprise. The thing that I'm most excited about is the opportunity to have really long form, in-depth conversations. We did try to do that on my cable shows on AM Joy and on the ReidOut, and I think we did a pretty good job. But in this format, we actually, without worrying about commercial breaks or sort of corporate governance, we can really dig deep with our guests and really, go deeper on issues than you can generally do in cable news.
Are you nervous at all about the launch?
Very, of course. I think if you're not nervous, then you're overconfident. And so I think, we have a great team. It's an incredible creative team. My husband, Jason, is a long time, man in the business. So he knows all the technical stuff. And we've pulled together a really terrific producing team and editorial team. And we've got a lot of partnerships, including, thank you, YouTube, for being so supportive. So we've gotten together a good team, but just having the right skills and the right skill sets and the right team is not enough. You also have to have an audience that's willing to come to you and ride with you. And so what we're hoping is that all of the folks who come up to me everywhere, in the streets and in the airports and everything, will also ride with us on this YouTube journey. It's not cable. It's not what a lot of people are used to, especially our seasoned folks. But come on this journey, just like the older folks got on Facebook and took it over. Y'all can get on YouTube too.
There you go. I mean, there was a mass outpouring of support that you received when your show on MSNBC was canceled back in February. How did that make you feel? And to your point, what are you doing and how do you feel about having all those people who continue to support you and advocate for you? How do you translate that into views for your new show?
Yeah, no, it's overwhelming. And I have to just say thank you. And, I absolutely love, I said on the Win with Black Women call after this all happened, that they pulled together kind of at the last minute, really because of what happened during Black History Month, by the way. MSNBC chose to do that during Black History Month, right after we had won our second NAACP Image Award, which was, weird timing. But I mean, I just felt so enveloped in the love of my people. And I so appreciate the Black community because we rally around each other. It's not even just about me. It's about us. And it's about the fact that we do need this information. We do need to have information that centers us, that speaks to us directly. It's why Black Enterprise exists, right? We need general information too, and we have to be a part of the general information universe, but it's also important that we have information specific to us and that speaks to our community. And while, the media has become more diverse, it's still missing some wheels when it comes to us. And some of the context of things that happen, without our presence, it's very difficult to make that translation. So, I always appreciate the support. People are always so kind. When we were just coming here, we're in California now for BET weekend. And, a sister stopped me in the airport, was like, wait a minute, I just realized that was you. And people are just so kind. So I take a lot of selfies everywhere I go because of that. And I'm so appreciative and grateful.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad that you did, you mentioned what you did at MSNBC. A lot of us have been writing for you and just watching. I mean, your reports were so in depth, and I miss your presence. I left a comment on YouTube. I forget what story they were tackling, but it was something that included race, and I was just like, yeah, Joy would have killed this. Like, because it's different when you have someone who has a lived experience. And we know that MSNBC earlier this year, a lot of anchors of color were removed, you being probably the most prominent. And just having that void, I think it doesn't sit well with a lot of viewership. I know cable news has been struggling for a long time, but this doesn't seem like it's the answer. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that every industry has to really come to grips with just the fact. And I think even the current administration don't want to come to grips with it, but it is a fact that this country is becoming more diverse. Diversity is not something that you can get away from. And in corporate America, I think there's a struggle because they know the current administration opposes diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so you're seeing everything from law firms to Hollywood in some senses, to corporations, to universities, reacting in some cases in fear. You saw what happened with Columbia University. But note that when they ran in fear from diversity, they got the exact same treatment as Harvard that stood strong. And so I think what the message that I would get just between the Columbia and Harvard examples, and also Georgetown, which stood up for its law students, taking the knee does not help you. You will still get the same beating from this administration that you will if you stand strong, because the reality is there is a deep opposition in the current administration to not just diversity, equity, and inclusion, but to a multicultural democracy. There's a clear attempt to dismantle a multicultural democracy and replace it with an autocracy. That's just a thing that's happened. I've been saying that since 2016. People like Mehdi Hassan have been saying it. Rachel Maddow has been saying it. A bunch of us are saying it. But the fact is, we're not talking theoretically anymore. It's happening. So the message I would send, not just to cable news networks, but to all corporations, all academic institutions, it doesn't help you to take the knee. You're still going to face the same consequences as if you stood up. So you might as well stand up for your integrity, for the sake of history, and because we need everyone to be in this fight.
Joy, when your show was canceled, again, it was canceled abruptly without explanation. And I believe your ratings were ascending. They were on the up and up, even after the Trump election. And I know you've said a dozen times, you don't even know why. But you did allude and spoke a little bit more in more detail with Katie Couric in that recent interview where you said you do believe being a Black woman was contributed to why your show was canceled, particularly because you said Donald Trump doesn't really, everyone criticizes Donald Trump on MSNBC, but it hits a little different when it comes from a Black woman. Can you just share your thoughts on that? And do you have any other revelations on or insight onto why your show was abruptly canceled?
Well, I think it's really interesting the way that those quotes were picked up and misused by entities like Fox and by, the Daily Wire and other right-wing entities. Because what I said, to be very specific, and I will say it again on this platform, is that not everyone on MSNBC, just to be clear, there's an editorial side of MSNBC and there's a straight news side during the day. They don't spend a lot of time criticizing Donald Trump. They just do the news. But from Nicole Wallace on down to Stephanie Rule, the editorial sort of standpoint of the journalists that are on MSNBC is not just to criticize Trump. It's to criticize what they see happening. And if any politician was doing what Trump is doing and flipping the country from a democracy to an autocracy, they would be criticized too. It's not about Donald Trump. Now, for me, I have a longer history of criticizing Donald Trump specifically. And because, in my view, his treatment of people of color has been consistently bad. And so I've had a racial critique of Donald Trump that goes all the way back to the 90s. I've never been a Trump fan. I never watched The Apprentice because I was a teenager when he was doing to the Central Park Five what he did and trying to get them killed. And I was around their age. And so I experienced Trump in a different way. So I've always been a Trump critic. What I said to Katie Couric, and I'll say again, is that, yeah, lots of people criticize Donald Trump. But because he is a person that has approached race in a very nasty and specific way, in a very negative way, he's had a negative obsession with Black people and a negative attitude toward Black people, I do believe that it hits different for MAGA and for him when he's criticized by a Black woman. Now, does that mean that the people at the network said, well, we don't like this black woman criticizing Trump? No. But what I'm saying is, if they were trying to capitulate, if people in corporate America want to give Trump something, what better to give them than the black woman that's criticizing him, right? It hits different for him. And then the second thing I'll say, and this is the part that gets left off of that commentary that I made with Katie, is that I also do believe that those who have been very frank and forthright in speaking about what's happening in Gaza don't really fit well in the corporate space. And that part always gets left off of those quotes because the right keeps proving me right. Because they're so triggered by race. They're so quick to jump on any racial commentary by someone black that they're proving me right. Because they're triggered if I talk about race and they freak out and grab pieces of my quote to Katie and say, aha, she says that MSNBC fired her because she was black. No, I didn't. I said that Donald Trump and MAGA, they feel differently when black people criticize them. And you know how I know that's true? Because of the way they reacted to those quotes. And the fact that people left off that second part, that I do believe that it is really challenging to cover what's happening in Gaza in this media environment. And that's not just at MSNBC. That's not just at CNN. That's everywhere. We've seen even in the 60 Minutes shakeups that even there's reporting that the reporting on Gaza has had some influence. So there's this weird thing that's happening where the Trump administration wants to greenlight all of the violence that is happening in the Middle East. And anyone who tries to stand in the way, whether it's a protester on a college campus or a person that's a journalist on air, that is trying to approach that in a way that doesn't immediately demonize the Palestinian people, you no longer fit in a corporate media space. And I think that is the point that needs to be made.
Joy, that was literally my next question. Do you believe, because that's another differentiator for you, you were unapologetic about your criticism to Israel's government. And particularly when it comes to what's happening in the Gaza war, which is why I need your voice. You know, I'm a news junkie. I'm watching everything on MSNBC and The View. And like you said, when it comes to progressive voices, you don't hear that criticism. And, you know, I stand up against xenophobia, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism the same way across the board. So it's not about being discriminatory. It's about just calling a spade a spade. So I'm glad that you mentioned that as well. Another thing, you know, now that you have left MSNBC, you were there for, I believe, a decade.
More than that.
What would you say, more than a decade? What did you learn from your tenure? And what did you learn from your unexpected termination?
Well, what I learned from my tenure, first of all, is that some of the most brilliant journalists that I could possibly have ever met have been through the MSNBC machine. Just some of the smartest producers, incredible crew people. You know, I totally miss my team, my ReidOut team, but also my AM Joy team, even the Reid Report way back in the day. I've always worked with brilliant people, and my fellow anchors at MSNBC are just absolute geniuses, and I still am very supportive of them. And so that part I learned is just the process of journalism is a fascinating thing, right? When I first got in, I was I was on the digital side, also on the local news side, which is very different than the cable news side. So I've had a really fascinating kind of journey through media, and I learned a lot during the time when my first show was canceled, when I went out in the field as a journalist. That's the first time I did that. I didn't go to school for that. I was more of a documentary film person when I came out of school. So I learned about storytelling and about the importance of storytelling, but also the importance of perspective. Because being a Black woman in those spaces that have a lot of white dudes and not a lot of us, you learn that our perspectives really, really matter in mainstream media, because we have a take on these stories, on policing, on the police killings of civilians, on things like Gaza that are unique and necessary for journalism to be robust. And so without us, journalism is a lot thinner. It is a lot more interesting, and it's a lot more effective because it lacks perspective. So I think the main thing that I learned is that we have to be in these spaces. We have to be in all of these media spaces, because without our voices, you're really not telling the story.
You know, speaking of prominent Black women yourself that are in these spaces, you know, one of the biggest headlines right now is The bomb Karine Jean-Pierre dropped when she announced publicly she's leaving the Democratic Party and she is now promoting a new book. She's getting a lot of criticism from the left, right, and center. You're a political analyst. I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think Karine has betrayed the Biden White House that gave her, this huge opportunity? She was deserving of it, but it was still an opportunity of a lifetime. Do you agree that people are saying she's hypocritical? And so I want to get your thoughts on that. And then also, what would you say could actually save prominent people, just anybody, from leaving the Democratic Party? What needs to be done?
Well, first of all, if people are mad at Karine, then they haven't been paying attention. The Democratic Party, and I've been a Democrat since I was 18 and was able to vote. My first vote, I'm going to age myself, was voting for Jesse Jackson in the 1988 Democratic primary. And then I was forced to vote for Michael Dukakis in the general election, because the primary is where you exercise your power and the general election is where you do your job. That's the way I view voting and democracy. But the reality is the Democratic Party, I've worked in Democratic Party politics. I worked in 2004 for America Coming Together, trying to remove George W. Bush from power because I was very much against the Iraq War and had quit local media, quit journalism because of the media's reaction to Iraq. And I worked on the Obama campaign, as did Karine, at a much higher level than I was. And so Karine has been through a lot of the same experiences that I have with the party. And if we're being honest, as Black people, the party receives our support almost unanimously when it comes to elections. They don't always serve us in a way that would befit the amount of support they get from us. There's a reluctance to really dance with us. They bring us to the prom, but then they want to dance with other people. And this is something that is not new. These are not critiques that are new. You hear it in every barbershop and beauty shop. You hear it if you go to your auntie's house and you talk about the Democrats. But if we're being real, we don't always feel the love. And I think with the last election with Kamala Harris, we really saw that not all of the constituencies we ride with and ride for are always going to ride for us. And that the party, you look at what Chuck Schumer is doing in leading the Senate Democrats, and you don't see strength, you don't see a fight, you don't see the urgency that is needed. And so I think the frustration with the Democratic Party is not just Karine. And I think if you've worked in the party, you're even more, because you know what they're capable of and you know what they could be doing and you know what they're not doing. So I don't wrong Karine at all. I am on my way in that direction myself when I look at this party. If they don't start standing up for democracy in a robust way and standing up for the communities at greatest risk, and that means Black folks, brown folks, AAPI folks, LGBTQ folks, and do it in a way that looks like they know they're in a war, then they're going to lose more than just Karine Jean-Pierre. They're going to lose a lot of us. She's a Haitian American woman watching her people lose their protection from being sent back to Haiti. She's she's born in Martinique, but her people are from Haiti. And I don't see a fight for those Haitian people. I don't see people standing up and saying we're going to make sure they don't get sent back. So if she's not seeing the love and she's not seeing the fight, of course she's frustrated with the party and ready to go. There's a lot of us that are feeling that way. We're certainly not going to go to MAGA because we know that MAGA does not particularly like Black people and is not really for us. So it's leaving a lot of people adrift with nowhere to go. And things like the Working Families Party are saying, we're here, we're ready to fight for you. And so if you're not at least listening to their pitch, then you are playing the game without thinking about power and how to exercise power. And I'm for us as a community exercising power, not just going along with a party because we've always been there.
Yeah, Joy, I feel the same way. I was saying this, I was mulling over the idea of leaving the Democratic Party myself. I just don't feel represented. I mean, the last time I really felt connected to an elected official was probably Bernie Sanders and Barack Obama. Other than, obviously, I was riding for Kamala, of course, but just that connection. And I think that it represents how I feel about the party in itself. Like, I'm not sure what it stands for. I know it's a big tent umbrella type of coalition, but it's like core values and just focus. It seems like it's being lost. But do you fear that at a time where progressives need to be rallying together to fight fascism, to fight white supremacy, and to fight the Trump administration, which is unprecedented in many ways. Is now the right time for us to leave the Democratic Party and for someone like Karine to vocalize that, or should we sort of do what Republicans do and fall in line and just focus on the issues?
I don't believe in falling in line, because falling in line behind what? I voted for Joe Biden, and I thought he was a far better alternative than Donald Trump. Um, Obviously in 2020 and he would have been in 2024. And I was one who said, if he at this point of his brain was mashed potatoes, I would have voted for the mashed potatoes on the floor that was Joe Biden over Donald Trump, because I knew what Donald Trump was. And I thought he was a better choice than Trump, even at his most diminished. And I thought obviously Kamala Harris was a better choice. But here's the problem. Go along with what? I do believe the greatest stain on Joe Biden's legacy will be Gaza. It will be him allowing 50,000 people to be bombed with our bombs, children, babies, mosques, schools, wiped out, people killed with our munitions. And no one can explain to me how this is a moral choice for the United States. It is an abomination morally. And he had Karine Jean-Pierre having to speak to that every day at that podium. She had to take those arrows. She had to take those hits, including from people in our community who forget that she came from MoveOn.org. She is a progressive who was being essentially treated like a neoliberal for 4 years. And she took that because she was loyal. She did ride for Joe Biden in a really robust way. And she was ride or die. And she did what she had to do and was loyal. It did not pay her back in the way she deserved, nor did it pay back Kamala Harris, who was also absolutely loyal. She could have broken from Joe Biden on that policy. I know, just as a journalist and having reported on Kamala Harris for a long time, that she had a very different view on Gaza that was much more humane than Joe Biden's, but she was loyal. And so our loyalty does not pay us back. And so the Democratic Party has to learn, like the Republicans had to learn with the Tea Party, demanding that they go their way. It's time for progressives to demand that Democrats either come their way or that they will go. And if there's no threat that you'll go, they'll never change. Think about it like a relationship. If there's no threat that you will leave, why would this person ever change? The Democratic Party have had us in this position where we feel we must go along in order that they will win. But then when they win, they don't exercise power for us. So I think the Democratic Party is at a critical juncture and needs to decide, is it willing to fight? And is it willing to fight in a way that understands they're facing fascism? And if they don't deserve the support of people who are being asked to go along for no reason and for no protection.
Well said, Joy. Would you ever consider running for anything?
Me? I like, you know what? I'm fascinated by politics. I find it fascinating. I am not interested in getting involved in it myself. But I'm definitely here for the fight. Whatever that fight entails, I'm here for it.
Gotcha. Well, speaking, just to bring it back to politics and the Joy Reid Show, talk to us more about that and what's the difference between the Joy Reid Show and the ReidOut, which was on MSNBC?
Well, I mean, one difference is, it's not on cable, which makes it a little bit more challenging to find for our seasoned citizens. So people have to go on the joyreidshow.com. It's a YouTube channel. So it's an enterprise rather than an employment situation, which is a lot more of a high wire act. So it's a little bit nerve wracking because I'm betting on myself. My husband and I, our production company, we're betting on ourselves, which I think is great. It's a Black owned enterprise, which I think people should know here at Black Enterprise, because this is our production company. We are doing this. This is not being produced by some big entity that's over us. This is us. So that is the big difference. This is an entrepreneurial enterprise. And so it's a risk. It's a risky thing. It's a challenge, but I think that we're ready for it. It's the same journalism. It's the same Joy. It's the same me, but I'm doing it in a different venue. And so I hope that people will take the chance, try this new venue, because I'm giving you the raw, real stuff. I believe in telling it like it is, and I'm still going to do that, but be able to do it in a more extensive way with fewer commercials.
We love that, Joy, and looking forward to, again, supporting you on this new journey. Being that you are, like you said, betting on yourself, are you bootstrapping? And what is the long-term plan? Do you want to get picked up by another network? Do you want to partner? Like, what's the goal to monetize so that you can sustain the project? And would you go back to a big network again?
So not looking to go back to a big network. I like my favorite employer and boss is me. Because look, I can't fire myself. I mean, I guess I could fire myself if I really got in a bad mood, but and I can look, we can figure out our own vacation times. It's a lot more, there's a lot more flexibility. I love the idea of being an entrepreneur, and I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. So I think this is a great thing. We have so many other projects that we're working on at Image Lab Media Group, which is our production company. We've got documentary projects. We've got so many things coming out. I've got another book coming out next year. So I'm very busy. So not looking for a job, not job hunting. So as far as the way these enterprises work, that given that this is Black enterprise, these businesses are funded in part on ad revenue. YouTube is an ad supported based network. And then I'm also still doing Substack, which is a subscriber based network. And also there is an ad support there. So the way you put these enterprises together is that you have to create an audience that's willing to subscribe on a premium level at some level, but also I don't believe in paywalls. So I try to put as much of this content without a paywall as possible. I want people to be able to get it without having to pay to get in the door, because I think it's important that people can get the information and not feel like they have to buy it. And so what we're trying to do is minimize the need for people to have to subscribe for money, but let people subscribe for free so they get the info. And then you will have to put up with a little bit of ads, but I think we're going to make them fun. This is more like radio where you read a lot of ads. So I only have to do advertising that I believe in. I'm not going to be selling stuff. I'm not going to be selling cigarettes and, and malt liquor. Like, it's going to be stuff that I actually believe in and that I'm actually going to try and use myself, and that people will know that I'm actually really endorsing it for real. It's an old school radio style model, but I think it is a better model, a better way than every 7 minutes having to watch 5 minutes of ads.
Joy, I know we have to let you go. Like you said, you are a very busy woman. What do you want people to take away from the Joy Reid Show, and how can we watch it?
So you can watch the show by going on thejoyreidshow.com. Very simple, takes you right to the YouTube channel. You can hit that subscribe. We hope you'll also hit that like button and that share so that you can share it with a friend, and just tell all your friends. I still run into a few people who haven't seen all of the media around the launch and are like, where can we find you? That is where to find me, thejoyreidshow.com. And what I would tell people is what you're going to get is what you're used to. In-depth information, perspective. We're going to take some of these issues and we're going to go deeper and really explain what you're seeing and what's going on so that you can understand all of the BS that's happening and try to push back. We've got some incredible interviews. Amber Ruffin is our opening interview. We put up a preview where we interviewed Ross Baraka, the mayor of Newark. He's running for governor. We've also got the former South African ambassador to the United States who was dismissed from the country because he told the truth about white supremacy. Jason Stanley, who is the expert in fascism. So many incredible interviews and more to come.
Amazing. Joy, thank you so much for just your resilience. You know, when people lose jobs, that's grieving. Like, you have to grieve that. And you kept going, fought through the tears, and you continue to just be a voice for so many unheard communities. And for women like myself. So thank you for that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Selena. I appreciate you. And look, we got to fight through tears. We as a people have been through far more, right? God of our weary years, God of our silent tears. Like, we know that we know how to do this. And so all we do is we do what we do. We keep going.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joy.
If you want more exclusive interviews and content, be sure to subscribe to the Black Enterprise YouTube channel. And don't forget to like and share this video.
For more than 5 decades, we've had your back. The New Norm and Black Enterprise have everything you need to elevate your excellence.